When you were asking where people was, I was about to say, I think Kyle's typing a message to me.
Oh.
And then he hopped on.
Let's see. That's funny.
When you were asking where people was, I was about to say, I think Kyle's typing a message to me.
Oh.
And then he hopped on.
Let's see.
When you were asking where people was, I was about to say, I think Kyle's typing a message to me.
Oh.
And then he hopped on.
Okay, I think we're live on YouTube.
All right.
Hey, Addie.
Welcome everyone, for those of you who might be here a few minutes early, and thanks for joining us for Open Source Live. This is something that we'll have our quarterly chats with to see what we're doing in all of those open source communities out there. And we're excited to have so many of our partners and Bywater staff team members join us today. So thank you all. And for those of you who might be in a little early, feel free to use our chat box. We'll be watching the chat as it comes through to ask questions to our staff and partners. And we'll get started in just a few minutes. Hi, Sam.
Hello. Man, I should have worn my awesome hat.
You still have a couple minutes to go grab it if you got it. He actually is. There you go.
Nice.
We have a full house now.
Right. It's kind of like being in the elevator. Ta-da.
Yeah, we need some on hold music.
Better be open source though.
I'm sure we could find some next time. Let's plan on it.
That's what we use for our Monday Minutes music.
Yeah. Nice.
There's an awesome open source where you can just browse through all different types of music. Now we have to find the link, Kelly, and get it in here so we can share it with everyone.
Congratulations on the new background there, Florida. No more wood paneling.
Yeah, no more wood paneling.
Nice.
And Kelly, for the win, you got the link faster than me. We'll have to put that in we'll put that on YouTube too.
Oh, we're totally going to have to start using that.
All right, well, it's 11 Eastern for those that are in Eastern time. Should we go ahead and get started? Awesome. Well, hello and welcome to Open Source Live. It's a quarterly conversation about libraries and open source. My name is Colleen Marquise. I work at Bywater Solutions. I'm a partner engagement specialist. And today we're joined by several of our Bywater team members, as well as some of our library partners from public, academic, and special libraries. So we just want to thank them all for joining us today. And today our topic, we're recapping 2020, the highs, the lows, the pivots that libraries have had to make, and what's new in the open source community and where we're going from here. So as we go, please feel free to make comments or ask questions in our YouTube chat. Jesse's going to be monitoring that. So we'd love to see you guys engage in our conversation. And to kick it off today, we have Kyle Hall. He's a developer for LibKey, excuse me, our open source computer reservation and time management system. So Kyle, yeah, what happened in 2020 and what's coming in 2021?
You're muted, Kyle.
The classic line from 2020. You're muted.
2020 was quite a year for LibKey. We saw a lot of great improvements, enhancements, and changes. Early on, the big addition was advanced reservations. Before that, LibKey was just like you could reserve it if there was someone using it now, and so that you would be the next in line, but now you can actually, if you need to place a reservation hours or even days ahead of time, you can do that now. So that was a really big improvement early on in the year. Another tumultuous thing was a wild change in print management because LibKey's original print management feature was built around Google Cloud Print, which Google is officially took away. It's gone now. They ended it this year. So we had to rewrite all of that print management. So what I have done is actually created something that works kind of similar, where there is a print manager that you can run on any Windows computer that has printers connected to it. And so LibKey will now send those through to that print manager to print on your local systems in a way that is kind of like Google Cloud Print worked. The idea is to make it as painless as possible to set up. There's also cup support. So if you are an Uber geek and want to use cups as your backend for LibKey print management, you can do that too. We've got a whole lot of print. I would say 2020 was the year of printing when it came to LibKey, because not only did we do that to bring print management back from the brink with the closing of Google Cloud Print, we also now in the latest version that hasn't even been released yet, we have the ability to do mobile uploads. So even if you are not physically in the library, even if you are not logged into a client, you can actually upload print jobs to your account so that they are ready to go. Maybe you, especially in the COVID era, maybe you're just in the parking lot, you can actually send a print job to the library and have them bring it out. Another small but I think important feature in the COVID era is the ability to specify gaps between reservations. So librarians have a chance to disinfect everything between uses. I'd say those are really the big ones, but I'm really, really happy with all we accomplished in 2020. And I think that 2021 is going to see I suppose I'm going to call it like the completion of all of the print management features to really make it compete with everything out there that is comparable to.
That's awesome, especially thinking about those like patron features, like you said, if they're doing curbside and they need to go pick up their print jobs, or the disinfecting in between. It's like those little things that we never had to deal with really before. And it's just awesome that it can be so flexible to make those changes for libraries and for patrons.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Jesse, were there any questions or comments for Kyle?
No, but we did have a nice welcome from our friends over at PTFS Europe, and they wanted to say hello. They're watching to see what we're doing across the pond.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. All right, well, next up we have Jesse and Keely to talk a little bit about Coral.
Exciting.
Well, I'll kick it off with, we had a major update for Coral in April of 2020, and some of the nice improvements that we saw were functionality where users can now search within the Coral organizations to do some synchronization between Coho vendors. So now they can bring in active information from there, and some really nice updates from the EBSCO knowledge base interface, bringing in information that you may have with connected subscriptions from EBSCO. And there were some really nice enhancements within the dashboards feature in the resource module. So it was nice to see some of those improvements from the Coral community. Maybe I'll pass it over to Keely next to talk about their end and some of the features that they have.
Definitely. So my name's Keely and I work at Holland and Knight, which is a law firm, and I'm a research analyst, what would be in research services, but traditionally the library. And really what was essential for us this year was using Coral when all of a sudden we had a lot of our resources IP authenticated. and we had to move to this remote reality where everyone was spread out across thousands of locations. Our firm has 27 offices, so it's spread out across different states as well as countries. And so what was great is having Coral with all of our information for access points that we could quickly pivot. So one of the greatest things was being able to then share those shareable username and passwords as an alternative to that IP authentication. Making sure that our patrons or attorneys or staff were able to get to that information just as fast as they were in the office was really such a major goal for us, because without information, what is there? So that Coral really saved us in terms of how quickly we were able to do that and efficiently. I know before we had Coral, keeping track of our passwords as well as what types of resources were authenticated which way or what was a major headache. I can't even imagine what would have happened if we weren't able to really lean on Coral this past year.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Keely.
Keely, do you want to talk generally, just in general for your library, what other challenges you faced, or are you guys have some goals or things changing for 2021?
Definitely. So with that, everyone now being spread out across a million different places, that ease of being able to just go stop into someone's office, or maybe you catch them in the elevator, or maybe even you're traveling to a different office. And so you get to talk about the new features that we have, the new resources, our services. That really took a hit. There were just less ways to get in touch with people. And we all had a lot of fatigue from emails and Zoom. So one thing that we implemented that I think was just so successful and could be used for any library was a monthly newsletter. It was great because it didn't clutter people's inboxes with multiple updates. We really made sure to make it one packaged item that we encouraged everyone to take that time to read, because it was just once a month. And we did everything from adding in those new ways to access information, putting articles about that, to researcher spotlights. So you got to know what someone's favorite food was and their favorite activities outside of work. That's something that we'll keep with us beyond 2020, which is really exciting. It was a nice way to kind of up our PR, as well as continue to get that essential information out to our large patron group. So that was something that I was really thankful for in 2020, was that start of a new initiative. So that was awesome.
That's really cool. I love hearing about the things that are going to stay, that kind of forced innovation that, you took kind of a negative thing and then turned it into this really amazing, forward moving positive thing. That's so awesome.
Definitely. It was something on, I think, our back burner for a while. Oh, that'd be great. But 2020 forced us to really put it in gear. I think we ended up putting our first issue out from start to send in just 2 weeks, which felt crazy at the time, but it was the best thing we could have done. So yeah, the silver lining to 2020 is it really got us to do some of those things that maybe we would have put off or thought maybe that won't work. We went for it. And so that was great.
That's so awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I definitely think that's something that I've seen come through my inbox from some of our other partners, really great newsletters and really trying to connect their patrons with different resources and things like that. So that's awesome. All right, so next up we have Addie on our Aspen Discovery team, joined with Sam Passey.
Hello.
So I can speak to quickly just some of the things that Aspen's really good at that we were able to see and use even more in 2020. And then I know Sam has like so much he can talk about. They use all of the features of Aspen. So, you know, one of the amazing things about Aspen is that it's for the user, it's for the patron. I mean, we obviously want to make life easy for the libraries, but we've seen the patron in like a really unique situation this year, like all of us. And Aspen allows the user to know all of the resources they have access to. So we have so many ways to let patrons know what they can utilize outside of just books. So like, you know, when y'all were closed, for real closed, not even doing curbside, they still had access to all the key e-content through your catalog, which is really cool. And they had access to like lynda.com if that's something you do, or any other resources really easily in a centralized location. So I know that was really helpful for most of our partners, but I know Sam has some really specific things that they did in 2020 and can speak to it from a librarian's perspective.
Thanks, Addie. So our organization is a little unique because we're involved with a public library, a community archive, and even a little local museum of history and art. And all of those were very much impacted this year, last year and this year. And one of the things that we were able to do in the library, we quickly pivoted and started curbside service. That didn't work so well for our archives. And most of the people who visited our archives skewed a little bit towards the older researcher, a lot of family history types, retired people who were in a lot of those at-risk categories where even if we were open, they probably would have been advised to stay home. And one of the things that we started playing with Aspen this year was we'd had MARC records created for a lot of our archival clipping files, folders, subject files. I mean, thousands of these things. And people could search for them. But one of the things that we changed this year is we started uploading PDF copies of all of those clippings files. Turns out that over the last couple of years, our archive staff had been scanning things mostly as a security measure, not really thinking about access. You know, why would people want to access the PDF copies when they can just come into the place? But when that dynamic changed, so we were able to take the work that had already been done to create MARC records, first of all, for these things, which are indexed in Aspen Discovery, and then we were able to attach PDF images to them. 2020 was supposed to be the major year. We were feeling so good because we worked with Bywater to implement events, our calendaring system, so that could be indexed within Aspen. And we're so excited about that. And that turns out to have been a little, you know, it's fabulous, but that wasn't the big pivot point for us for this year. So we're really excited to see after everyone gets their shots, how many people take advantage of seeing events and things in Aspen. This year, it was really the year of taking a lot of the information that we already had in our archives and putting that, even if it had been online, making it discoverable, indexing it through Aspen. So it's just kind of a one-stop shop. And are we screen sharing today, or are we just talking? Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and share a screen here, so this is our interface. We have a web builder functionality that we sponsored this year, and you know, I'll skip the whole demo, but what I wanted to do is just show here. Search for Doris Burton, who is the woman who founded our community archives, our history center, and just to give you a taste of the kinds of things that you can see in Aspen, from catalog resources to archives. These things that you see in history and archives, prior to indexing them in Aspen, they had been online, but we counted and it took 10 different clicks through 3 different websites to find the material. And now it's just available right there. Obituaries. We've worked with Bywater. We had quite a quite a list of obituaries and genealogy information that we'd kept, and they worked with us to massage the data to get it into Aspen and book list. And we're just super excited to show you how those folders look. And this was let me just type and talk. Let's see. Okay. So this is an example. So previously we would have just had the MARC record for this item, and it would have had the call number here. And now we can come in here and view that information. One of the big things that's, I don't know if it surprised us, but the primary users of this have been the writers of the local newspaper. And so we've been super excited to see them. They've actually gotten on board with us with some more formal digitization agreements. And go ahead and stop my share here. But we're super excited. Go 2021. Let's see what we can do this year.
Thanks for showing us that little demo, Sam. It's awesome. And you guys had volunteers help with that project too? Yeah. So volunteers did most of the scanning, and then we had, because our open hours were reduced this year, some of the like front desk library staff that normally isn't as involved with behind the scenes and metadata stuff, since they didn't have people coming into the building and needed something to do, we're able to get through the closures, retaining all of our employees by having them do the work of uploading those files and doing some of the data cleanup and things like that. And now that we are open, when it's slow, as it can get sometimes in the evenings, those are times where now, whenever it's slow, people just jump in and upload local history stuff. And and we can do, you can upload just about any kind of PDF. So a lot of our story time stuff that we've created, we're playing around with that next. And we've started checkout kits for families that are having to homeschool. Check out a microscope, check out you name it, it's in there. And playing around with how to make that a little more appealing and findable is something that we're constantly working on refining. But we have enjoyed immensely playing with Coho and Aspen this year. I always love checking out your website to see like the different things you guys are doing. So thank you for sharing again. All right. I forgot to check in on the comments, Jesse. Anything going on in there we need to talk about? Yeah, well, people are loving the converting the files to PDF to make it easier access for patrons, and just some comments that they love seeing the live demo. So nice job there, Sam. Happy to do it. Thanks for having us. All right. Well, we have Coho next. So we have Kelly, our fabulous educator, and Lisette here to talk about Coho.
Hi, welcome. I'm super happy to talk about Coho in general for 2020 and maybe the future of 2021, but I always like to hear what the libraries are doing, probably more specifically. So Lisette, I'll let you steal the show after I do my little spiel. What I would, and I get really emotional about this, but what I really love to see is how much the Coho community came together at about 1 month into the pandemic and said, okay, all the libraries that don't have a support company cannot batch update all their due dates. We need a tool. We need the power to go back into the librarians, which is exactly what Coho was created for. Give the librarians the ability to do this for themselves. And so I don't know, maybe April or May, Coho community created a bulk due date tool, which was amazing, fabulous. It really helped a lot of libraries, again, put that control back in their hands and not have to wait for somebody else or not have to figure out how to do it from a database SQL statement, because I certainly couldn't. So that was one thing that I really felt like everyone's working together on this goal of making sure librarians can support their community, serve their community, even if they're closed. And that really is an emotional feeling for me. The next thing I would say is curbside pickup. I don't know about you all, but my library was absolutely closed for months. It was the most devastating moment of my life. And as soon as the thought to be able to go and pick something up was just amazing. And Coho again threw that together and said, let's do this, and really got it out there. Again, giving the power back to the user, to the librarian, to choose what time, how many pickups, not to overwhelm them with this, you have to do it this way. I'm going to give you so many options. You are going to go, oh, there's so many options. So that is really, really amazing. And I'm really grateful for that. And I also want to say that, you know, CoaCon happened. It should have been in New Zealand. The ability for them to make it stream, more people probably saw it because they were either working from home or they had the ability to do it versus being behind the circulation desk. Was amazing. Just the amount of work that probably went into the Coho community to put that together and live stream it and make it available to everybody is great and awesome. And I really hope that going forward, conferences are done that way as well, in a more robust fashion, because people will attend. They can't travel necessarily, regardless of the pandemic. They can't leave for whatever reason, and this will let them continue their knowledge and have the power again back into their hands to know their system that they're using. And finally, I want to say that I think that the co-op community and the software really has listened to librarians and listened to the users of the librarians and say, you want this? Okay. Or this is how we need to make it work. And like you all, I hope that we continue using these tools such as Curbside, thinking about your community members. Is it an advantage to them, even once you're open, to still offer that type of service? And I think that we're all becoming better at helping their community through this pandemic, and Coho's there to support that. Lisette, over to you.
Thanks.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
you touched on a couple things I was gonna talk about. We are loving the Coho Curbside plugin. We're using it at our consortium right now. I think only two or three libraries out of our consortium are using it, in part because until fairly recently, there were some things that we hadn't been able to figure out to make it work for our workflows. But because it's in Coho, it can be manipulated with jQuery. And so we were actually able to, I'm just going to show this off real quick. Yeah, that one. We set some jQuery up. So if you select Moscow as your home library, which is where I work, and is one of the libraries that's doing the most curbside pickup, we have this little pop-up because we're trying to not have people make appointments the same day. Really, it's after we open, because we try to get it all set up like around when we open for the day, so that we have this note. So at least if someone clicks through and says okay on this, if we don't have their holds available, we can say, well, you said okay on the thing and we didn't have your holds ready yet because you made your appointment too late. And a couple things like that. We also hid the, inform the library that you're here for your pickup button at Moscow and one of our other branches, Genesee, because it didn't work with our workflow. We just have a table set up. So you just come when it's your time slot. And if you need us to take it out to your car because you can't get out of your car, then you can call us and we can take it out. But that button didn't really work for us. So we hit it with some jQuery, which is one of the great things about Coho, is how flexible it is that you can make those changes on your own. And a lot of those end up, not necessarily for the Curbside plugin, but for other aspects of Coho, often later make it into the code where you can, make those changes without having to use the jQuery to make it more accessible for more people. I was also going to talk about the due dates extension. It's just so cool because we're supported by Bywater, and we had you guys change due dates for us the first time, but then it was really nice because we didn't know how long we'd be closed. We only extended them through like the end of May when we first closed. And by the end of May, we did end up needing to extend it out through June. No one was accepting returns yet, or most libraries weren't yet. But then after that, there's been a wide variety of like who was accepting returns starting when. So we were able to like extend due dates for Moscow patrons to this date. And if the library was going to be closed longer, they could extend their patrons' due dates a little bit longer if they needed to. And so having that flexibility and not having to put in a ticket every time we're like, oh, dang, we need to change the due dates again for everybody. And along with that, being able to update the notices and slips really easily for a variety of things. You know, we changed the due date slips so that they would say, you know, we've updated these, we're not doing fines and fees, you know, just don't worry about it. And then once we started returning things, we put our quarantine period on there too. So up at the top in bold and again at the bottom, it's like, we're quarantining all items for at least this long. If you returned it within that last period, don't freak out that you're getting this notice, kind of thing. Because at first we got a lot of questions about it. We still get some, but making it clear both in all the notices and slips that are going out about due dates, and also we have it on our news on our OPAC. So every time you go to the OPAC, it says, just a reminder, we're quarantining everything for at least a few days, so that, you know, they really know. And that's really nice. And also with the notices and slips, we switched to self-service holds because of the way that our library is set up at our branch. And so being able to change the slips ourselves to, we have like first 2 letters of the last name, first 2 letters of the first name, part of the library card. So it's, you know, more privacy. It's not just, you know, Bob Smith. Oh, what's Bob Smith picking up? You know, being able to do that with Coho is really nice with that functionality and flexibility. Also, we had been using the Coho self-registration setup some, but we switched it so that they're assigned a library card number, which works really great after we changed some staff cards who had library card numbers that were randomly really high. Like where they'd set up their SIP, like a SIP card number for their self-check machine to be like starting with a 9. And the self-check assigns it, or the self-registration assigns a card number. It's like the next highest card number from one that's already in there. And so all of our databases that authenticate based off the beginning of the card number did not like our self-registered patrons. So it took like some cleaning up there, which was probably better for our database anyway, to get some of those long high card numbers changed over to something more consistent. And then that's been really great. We, you know, each individual library handles it a little differently. Like some of them are contacting them as soon as it comes in, mailing out a library card to them, things like that. Some are just waiting for them to come in, and then if they don't, the card gets expired and purged. So that's been really nice, because especially when we didn't have anyone in the building, it let patrons still get access to our digital resources that maybe they hadn't needed before or been as interested in or known about, because we also really push those in like our newspaper article and our newsletter. Like, here are ways the library is still open to you, even though you can't come in, and things that you can do. And so that's been really great. Let's see. I also wanted to talk about Coho US also did 2 conferences online this year, one in the spring, which we'd already planned to do online. And then, so it worked out really well for us. A lot of people were able to come who maybe wouldn't have been able to. There were like more than 200 people at the conference, which was huge for Coho US. Or the in-person conferences are usually like 70-ish people the last few years, or the last couple of years, and it's been slowly growing, but you know, 3 times the amount of people, and there was lots of great participation. So that was really great. And they're doing another online conference this spring. Yeah. Like Keely, we were able to do some front end work on some programs, 1,000 books before kindergarten, and some better strength relationships with our local schools that we'll be able to continue before that we wouldn't have had the time to, sit down and get everything started. Especially the 1,000 books before kindergarten takes a lot of work to get set up, but then once you've got it, it's much easier to maintain, and it's something we've wanted to do for a while at Moscow Public Library that now we get to.
I love that you and Kelly both talked about like increased access to education, not only just like in professional development in the Coho community, but through programming. I know that's like when I worked in public libraries, we would always talk about wanting to do like our story times virtually or something like that. And it just was always one of those things that was back burner. And it seems like now it's like that forced innovation of, moving forward with it. And I hope that these conferences maybe consider hybrid and, streaming and things like that in the future, because it definitely seems like, for those libraries that don't have maybe the finances to send someone the travel cost to a conference. And it's just great to see all the participation and like the increased numbers during this time. So thanks guys for mentioning that. Okay, and last but not least, we have Ian on our Folio team, and we have Jessica here to talk a little bit about the academic librarian perspective and what challenges and what solutions you guys came up with in 2020 and where you're going in 2021.
Cool. Well, I will keep it brief from the Folio end perspective. Unlike all the other projects that we've heard about, which have made improvements and pivots for 2020, Folio kind of started. we brought 4 of the first dozen libraries in the world live onto Folio, and there are a bunch more libraries that are looking to get geared up this summer of 2021. This is the emergence of this particular product. So it's been very exciting to be in this new and very fast moving sort of project space, and like, how are we going to do this? And then some of the original plans, like, oh, we'll have more things happening in 2020, and well, we needed to reassess because there's been so much tumult and chaos that year. There have been numerous releases. They've been stabilizing sort of how they're doing the release pattern. Honeysuckle, which is they do alphabetical flower names. So Honeysuckle has come out. Iris will be coming out early 2021. I believe May is when it's targeted for, and that's going to be like one of the real big ones. So I look forward to a chance to sort of talk about that a little bit more in detail then. But yeah, it's been getting started, getting folks onto it. And one of the things, at least from the back end in where I'm working, is this also means that we have to sort of up our tool game. We have to look at how we're doing tools to support these kind of projects. And best part is that we get to make the tools open source so that we can work from there. So I've got a fun project that's basically supporting what we're doing in Folio that gets to be released for Folio. So I ramble. I'm going to stop rambling because I think it'd be much more interesting to give the mic over to Jessica and hear what's actually happening in a library that is now one of the first ones in the world on Folio.
Thank you, Ian. It's been really exciting. This was a project that we had heard about from some of our ESCO partners, and they kind of let us know what was happening in terms of the ILS world for the libraries. And our first question, I think they had given us like a short term, like a very short demo, because they didn't have a full demo when they first introduced it to us. And we were just like, okay, how do we hop on? Like, when can we just jump onto this project? And we started last summer, I believe it was, where we got in contact with Ian and Jesse and the rest of the Bywater team. They met my crazy team of 3. We're quite characters. Juan wouldn't wake up in the morning. We were dying by the afternoon. It was really a very great experience. And we were excited to jump onto Folio because one of the things that we wanted is something that was very interface friendly, right? I'm the only full-time librarian at my academic library. I have Juan and Elaine who are professional staff members, but they don't have any sort of library training or they didn't go to library school. And we are supported mostly by student assistants, right? So we hire about 30 or so student assistants throughout the semester to help us, right? And so it comes to training, like how much time can I spend training this student when I'm juggling all these other things that I'm required to do? And they really needed something that was simple, and Folio is that thing that they really liked. We had all of our students test it out and they thought it was amazing. Where did they go to look up a user? They just simply click the button on the top where it says user. Where do they go to check out? They click the button that says check out. Where do they go to check in? Just click the button that says check in. There was no extra language that they didn't understand, because while we're used to speaking language as in the patron and our ILS and the OPAC and all these words, our student assistants do not know these words. They just know, well, who's the user? They know, okay, I have to check this out, check this in. Where do I go? Do I click on discovery? Because they don't really know what discovery means. I talked about like, where did you guys discover the item? Well, I don't know what that means. Oh, did you just look up the item, right? And so it's been quite interesting, especially 2020 has been definitely an interesting year. I believe we started a transition with Folio while we were in quarantine. So we were all at home trying to figure out like the emails that Jesse and Ian were like sending us. And then when we finally got to campus, it was like, oh, thank God we're back on campus, right? Because now we have access to all of our files, so we can kind of like figure out better how does Folio really work. And Folio is cloud hosted, which is amazing. That means that we can still have access to it off campus. And that's really important for us because my library personally doesn't have any dedicated servers. So anytime we look for a new product, we needed to get it hosted. We also needed something that was reasonable, right? As 2020 happened, I'm sure, and every single library can probably attest to this, our budget decreased as well, right? So it's basically putting priority on some of the things we actually needed. So that's looking at a tool that we can use every single module that's presented to us at a reasonable price, which is what we got. For us, it didn't make sense to use a tool that we weren't using it to its maximum. We want to use the tool to its maximum to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Yeah, it's been very interesting for us in 2020. We right now we're on smaller hours or reduced hours for our patrons as well. We do have a holding period for whenever an item comes in. We kind of set it aside for 2 to 3 days. Depending on the type of item it is, sometimes we'll just wipe it down with a wipe, or we just kind of leave it sitting there for it to, you know, if anything happens. And then we also went through the big projects of trying to renovate our library, right? So we were transitioning to Folio, but we also found that we needed to try to increase our space for students, because now we have to adhere to COVID procedures. And how do I adhere to 6 feet apart? Because in the past, like, how do I get as many people in here as I possibly can? So let me put, if I need 30 computers, let me switch the computers all close together. And now we can't have that. Now we have to move computers apart so that they're each 6 feet apart. So when somebody was come and use the computer, they're 6 feet from the person next to them. But that means that you're reducing your computer space. So we definitely had to go through these big projects of trying to create more space. Jesse and Ian have been very patient with us through the whole process. I'm sure we asked a lot of questions, and we'll probably continue asking a lot of questions as we figure out how to learn the system a little bit better. But it's something that we're very excited about, and we're still playing around with the system.
When I originally talked to you, I was just so blown away that you were doing so much with such a limited staff. And like, I know that's something that can resonate with a lot of different libraries right now. And it just reminds me of having these conversations today, like how resilient libraries are and library staff are. So definitely commend everyone out there in, you know, not just the open source community, but like libraries as well. Also, we're going to give you credit for the new Folio slogan, which is student assistant improved. So Gets the stamp of approval from
Stamp of
students.
approval for our students.
All right. Well, Jesse, are there any other comments or questions?
Taking us back to one where we were looking at Aspen and just how nice the like genealogy and ancestry like tie-in is, and just wishing that, you know, we could tie that in for future libraries. So, you know, nice to see that. And another listener was just commenting on being able to attend Coho US's online conference this year and how huge that was for them to be a part of. So, you know, just tying in that virtual conference. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Jessica, because I remember one of our training sessions while they were having carpeting installed, training and implementing all at once. So just powering through 2020 and all of the obstacles that came in, and multitasking, I think was quite an achievement.
Good sense of humor is what we have to have a good sense of humor with everything.
Yeah.
Ian and Jesse can attest to that. You know, Elaine and I picked on Juan. Juan couldn't wake up in the morning. And we're like, come on, Juan, let's go. So it was very, good sense of humor, definitely.
And one more comment that just came in from our YouTube listeners. PTFS Europe wants to give a huge shout out and credit to libraries all over the world for their resilience. And they've seen the same thing in the UK under very, you know, difficult circumstances. So that is huge, huge shout out.
Well, we just want to thank everyone for joining us today. This is our first session of Open Source Live, and we hope to do this quarterly. Our next one is April 22nd, so there'll be, you know, information going out about that. And if you want to join us in the hot seat to talk about your library and open source, you can email outreach@bywatersolutions.com, and we'll put that in chat. And we'd love to speak with you. So thanks for everyone for joining us today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.